Okay.
So we're ready?
So no. Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll get the meeting started. Start off with introductions. And start with myself, Brian Tapscott, Somersworth.
Marilyn Barton, Stratford Regional Planning Commission.
At Comeau, Brookfield.
Brad Nichols-Coase.
Greg Jones, Stratford Regional Plan.
Victoria Parley, Northwood. Sandy Jones, Rochester.
Dan Camara, Stratford Regional Planning.
Mark Ambrosi, Stratford Regional Planning.
Cynthia Copeland, Stratford Regional.
Steve Brown, Wakefield.
Ken Orban, City of Rochester.
Bob Jaffin, Rochester.
Tom Crosby, Madbury.
Tom Clark, Dover.
Marcia Gassis, Dover and Barrington too. I guess. I'm here from Barrington.
Bill Connor at Somersworth.
Ed Jansen, Rollinsford.
And?
Beverly Prairie, UNH.
Okay. I want to remind everybody, the sign-in sheet, make sure you all have a chance to sign it, so it adds less confusion in trying to take the minutes as to who was here at the meeting. So I appreciate it. All right. Staff communications. Marilyn.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, I'm
I
sorry.
just mentioned, I have a meeting at 10:30, so if we're not done by 10 or 10:15, I'm going to have to leave, and I apologize.
I'm going to see what I can do for you. Okay, Marilyn, go ahead.
I just wanted to remind the commissioners in attendance today that our next commissioners meeting is next Thursday, January 24th, here in Conference Room 1A at 7 p.m. I just sent out meeting packets yesterday, and I'll be in touch next week to secure a quorum. I wanted to point out that our speaker for the evening is Raymond Kaniski. He's from the Nature Conservancy of New Hampshire, and he's going to be speaking about the New Hampshire Estuaries and Oyster Restoration Program. And also as a reminder, we were scheduled to have a State of Our Estuaries community presentation here on the other day, but due to the inclement weather, it's been rescheduled for Wednesday, the 23rd, next Wednesday, and it's at 7 to 8:30 p.m. here in Conference Room 1A. And if you have any questions about that, you can contact our regional planner, Kyle Pimentel. That's it.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I just want to remind everybody about the voting bylaws for the MPO meetings. And I'm reading here. It says, communities that have not paid annual dues to the Srpc shall have one representative and one alternate, equal to one vote. What else do I want to say? Oh, that is a federal mandate. They require us to allow either dues or non-dues paying members to be able to vote. And with that said, I'm going to move on to action item. Let's see. Draft MPO minutes of December 21st. Is there a motion to adopt the December 21st minutes?
I'll move.
Okay, Tom. Seconded by?
I'll second.
Seconded by, yeah. All in favor, say aye. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right, discussion items. 4.1, project solicitation process and schedule. That's a mouthful, Mark.
There
Explain
it is. So I wanted to start out before really getting into the project solicitation discussion item itself, just reviewing what we're going to be talking about today. We have a lot of different plans. We're talking about two different project solicitation processes, and I want to just clarify before we go ahead so everybody's on the same page. So what we see here, this triangle kind of represents all of the years in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, 2013 to 2040. So within this long-range regional transportation plan, the first 10 years are made up of projects in it. So years 13 through 22 at this point are made up of projects from the 10-year transportation plan. That's a statewide plan. First 4 years, 13 through 16, are made up of projects from the Transportation Improvement Program. So basically, out through 2022 at this point, all the projects are set. within these two other plans. Today, when we're talking about the project solicitation process, discussion item 4.1, we're really talking about projects from the 2023 through 2040 range. So that's just to get everybody on the same page about what I'm talking about for project solicitation. Dan's going to be talking about the 10-year plan, which is talking about a different set of projects. So moving ahead with the project solicitation process, we kind of went through this process last August when I sent all of the projects from our long-range transportation plan out to communities for the communities to review. Similar process is happening again. Come over here and find my mouse. Similar process happening again. Coming up pretty soon here this winter. We're going back out to communities to solicit projects for the period of time from, I think it's going to actually move out a little bit because we're in a new 10-year plan cycle now. I think it's going to be 2025 through 2040 is the period of time we're soliciting projects for. I'm going to be sending out a sheet that looks a lot like this sheet to every community with the project from their community. And basically what this is the packet that's gonna go out for the project solicitation. The first page here, the reviewing current projects. This has all the projects that we have in our transportation improvement program, our 10-year plan, our long-range plan, and it also includes the vision projects, which basically are in the long-range plan but don't have any cost associated with them or aren't planned for construction. They're just projects we'd like to see within the region. We're sending this out to communities so that they can review the projects that are in here, that are currently in the plan, and they can make a statement of whether or not they're still important. I'm sorry, this is pretty small over here. I can zoom in. So is this project still important? Does it need to be included? Click this button. Yes. Long-range plan, yes, a vision project, no, if it's not important anymore, if it's been constructed, or not applicable, which would be projects that are in the transportation improvement program because we don't get to change those projects. The second sheet here, the worksheet, is an area for new projects. So the first one was reviewing projects that were in the plan. This is reviewing any new projects that are needed. So the community would come over here, they had any new projects, it's in Barrington, you click your town, you name the location, you go to the project type, is it safety, is it transit, is it a study, we talk about the project need, why it's important, and then put an anticipated scope in for us, and also an anticipated cost if that's possible. And this is how we're accounting for any new projects that communities may need. The third page, and really the last page, is kind of on a different vein. It's talking about transportation priorities. So this doesn't have anything to do with adding new projects. This just helps us get an idea of what's important to the communities locally, and from the community's view, what's important regionally. So we've come up with these, increase the size here so folks can see them. Oh, there we go. So here we have these different transportation priorities that we've talked about internally. These can be shifted somewhat. We're going to have a definition about what we mean by each of these different priorities for the region. And we're going to have some scale that a community can score how high of a priority each one is. And the goal from this is really to help us understand what we should be focusing on for planning activities for the region. It gives us better information when we're going through the 10-year plan. We can go to, we have the Governor's Advisory Council and intermodal transportation meetings, the GASSET meetings that come in the fall where we talk about the draft 10-year plan. we can really go in and say, well, our communities feel that transit or safety are the most important things, and that's why we're promoting this set of projects. And it really helps us with our planning and making sure that we're representing the region that we're supposed to be representing. And so with this process, we have these materials, and I have one more thing. We're also going to be sending out to each community, it's called a KML file, and it really just works with Google Earth. You click it, or you download Google Earth, you click the file, and it opens up in here. And what it's going to do eventually, it's not entirely cleaned up yet, but all these little dots are actually projects from one of the plans. So you can go in, zoom in, I think, you can see more projects. And we can go in, click on a project, and get a little bit of information, what plan it's from. There aren't going to be all these fields here, but it's going to tell a little bit about the project, what project type it is, where it is, comments about the project, and a few other things. And that's just to help folks understand, the projects that we're sending out that are already in the plan. We want people to understand where they are, so we're not duplicating them.
What's going to be the difference between the yellow dots and the red dots?
The yellow dots are just what plan they're in, and these are going to be cleaned up. So the yellow dots, I believe, are TIF projects. Oh, this one says long-range plan.
Yeah, it's just part of the same cable.
Oh, okay, yeah. But basically, they're going to split it up into, which, I guess, years this project falls into. So some of the projects, again, we aren't going to be able to change. Other projects that are from those out years, the 2023 through 2040, those projects are the ones we're really reviewing. But we want to just make sure we're including all the projects we can.
Brad?
Yeah.
That's okay.
How do you portray a, say, new expanded bus service project?
Well, it's really tough to see here because the colors didn't come out the way we wanted them to. But these lines here, so we click on certain lines, we actually have attributes associated with those lines. So this would be, transit route line, Route 4, something like that. So we'll be sending out, we're trying to figure out exactly how we want to send it out to communities so that there's no confusion. We're talking about, we're sending it out to Lee, we're talking about Lee. We also want the communities to be able to see the other projects in the region to kind of see how that fits in. And we want to be able to show projects that are, go beyond one jurisdiction also. So a project that extends along an entire route, a study, something like that, that would show up as a line segment. So
How would you indicate that if you click on the line, it will show that information?
When we, I guess, get it past this draft version, the lines will show up in some pretty brilliant colors instead of just a normal road color.
We'll put together a quick little how to use this file. So we'll give you the link on where you can download Google Earth. It's a free download, very quick. And then we'll give you some quick instructions on how to use and navigate. Yep.
Bob, then Brad?
Since you're still in the early stages, I would suggest or recommend that you, when you set up your color coding, I would ask that you consider doing an N95 color code and an I-95 coalition color code.
Okay. Thank you. Brad?
Would it also be possible to have it set up so that, you could click on Coast or Wildcat Transit and any of their projects would be highlighted or what have you? Or like DOT or whatever, however you want to categorize entities that would have a group of projects, a potential group of projects that would be across the region versus, say, a community?
So rather than lumping them all together like you see here, have them
by community.
By almost like a new layer or something?
Yeah, sure.
Yep. I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, we were debating whether we wanted to break them out as, all the projects from Barrington, all the projects from each community. We saw it being difficult a little bit to do the regional projects that don't really fall under any of the agency or community categories, but we can certainly do that.
But that's a whole new layer.
But yeah, each one would kind of be its own layer. You could turn them off and turn them on. And yeah, so this is one of the first products from our project portfolio also. This is kind of what it allows us to do. Instead of having to translate these, we have this on our GIS system, and we can just convert it and do these visualizations much more easily. So the project solicitation, we're getting pretty close to the time that we need to send this information out to communities. The way I envision this working is we will send this information out to communities. So that would be probably the planner or the town administrator. And we would also like to send them out to, how did I put this? The body that would endorse them. So if it's a city council or a board of selectmen, we'd like to be able to send it out to the people who are going to need to review this before it comes back. Our goal is that we have enough information provided with the packet that communities can go ahead and fill out the information on their own, bring it to whatever board they need to bring it to, get it endorsed by the board, and then we would like to set up a meeting where we come to the community and have a discussion just about the priorities, about the projects that are in there, and maybe talk about any additional projects that might need to go in there. It's a little bit different than last time around. I think last time we went out, we had a discussion with the communities and kind of filled it out with them, and I saw that it could have been somewhat more productive in certain situations because I think we didn't prepare communities well enough to understand exactly what we were looking for, and we want to do a better job of that this time around. So yeah, once again, we'll have probably a month or two for communities to review this, and then in April, we're hoping to have all the information back by the end of April, so we're going to be on an aggressive campaign to go out and meet with communities and set up meetings with the appropriate folks in communities to review this information.
UNH has 3 plans that are recently funded from the federal government. Do we have to wait for this process to get them in the plan, or is there going to be a TIP amendment?
There's actually a TIP amendment that we're probably talking about a little bit later. We just saw the list of projects. It's still a draft list, and they have a lot of changes to make. So we didn't want to put it up here wrong at this point, I guess, so it give people some misinformation. But
Just didn't know which process it would be
yeah,
under.
that'll be coming out soon. That's a separate process actually, and those projects are all taken care of within that.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none? Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Move on to the 10-year plan, process, and schedule with Dan.
All right, thanks, Mark. Now, as Mark was saying, we gave that brief introduction of the 10-year plan and how it fits in with our larger long-range plan. It's basically the first 10 years of that plan, and within that, the first 4 years of the 10-year plan is the Transportation Improvement Program. So hopefully that makes sense there. I don't know if anybody else needs any further clarification on that, but there are still a few unknowns with the 10-year plan process. We don't have a a regional budget to shoot for. We're still a little bit unclear on whether or not we're going to be using our, was it 10.1% that we did last time around?
Ones actually may have some information for
Yeah,
us.
I can jump in on this one.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yes, we'll be providing the regional planning commissions a threshold of funds. We have a couple thresholds. One is based on the last 10-year plan, and the other threshold is going to be based on population and federal aid miles. Basically take what the federal money is, break it down by region, and based on population and federal lane miles. And that'll be a threshold that we're going to provide each of the regional planning commissions. So when they start looking at the projects, they know about how much money they have to spend in that area. Some other changes down, stop me if you get.
Sure, yeah, sure, yep, go ahead, yeah.
Now, this year's continuing plan process is going to change a little bit how the project selection works coming back to DOT. Now, we're kind of changing it quite a bit from the previous years. We're trying to be a little more open and transparent on what we're doing. And what we do is, as Dan and Mark solicit projects from regional folks, put them in and rank them. We're also going to provide all the DOT projects to the regional planning commissions to rank them. So in essence, what we're going to do is you're going to have a list of projects in your region. It's going to be based on what DOT recommended and what comes in from the region. It's going to be put into one big list, and then it's going to be ranked under the criteria provided by DOT. That's one of the big changes this time, is that we're actually providing the criteria how we are going to rank and judge the projects. What we're going to be asking you to do is asking the Regional Planning Commission to actually rank all the projects, and we're going to bring it back into new software. It's called Decision Line, structured decision-making tool, and we're going to take your ranking and merits of the project, put in this tool, and see how they all rank out. By doing some voting by criteria.
Brad?
Is that, how do other modes fit into that?
This is going to be all projects are going to be using federal money.
Okay.
So it'll be all modes of transportation. And within the criteria, there's 8 criteria. I think it's being passed around right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And once it's around, maybe I'll talk a little bit about that and how this tool uses this. It's really a fascinating tool. It allows us to do decision-making based on quantitative as well as qualitative data through prioritization done by kind of voting by representatives doing this criteria judgment. Actually, yesterday we brought all the regional planning commissions in. I'm not sure if you already talked about this. I do
Nope,
apologize
yeah,
for being late.
I was planning on it, but yeah, you can go ahead.
You want me to keep going, Dan? Do you want to take it? I don't want to jump on your toes.
Sure, yeah, I'll take over and feel free to jump in.
I just did this whole thing at Southern New Hampshire.
Okay,
So
all right.
it's kind of fresh in my mind. I looked at the documents come around, make a little more sense. Well, Dan, can you put one on the screen? Do you have a copy?
Yeah, I can definitely.
Is this okay? I take this kind of time? I
Sure.
want to explain this to you folks.
Run with it.
Thank you.
I just would like to add there are some people that are new here.
Okay.
So the 10-year plan is from here to here, and we do it every 2 years. And it goes through the legislature, and it finally comes out as a bill that the governor signs.
Right, let me give you a quick lowdown off the top of my head. The 10-year plan is a 2-year process. And right now we're starting the cycle for the next process. And typically, it's from January to April is when the regional planning commission reach out to communities and solicit projects. Then they will submit them to DOT. And from the April to September, we'll be looking at developing a draft 10-year plan. And then come this fall, we'll be submitting a draft 10-year plan and we're working with the gas people. And that's when we start the public hearing process. Government advised the council intermodal transportation. And we usually go out from September to November, October-ish, and we work with the gas to refine that draft 10-year plan, the other process. At that point, it then goes to the governor. Around December, then we work with the governor and we make changes to them back and forth. Once we're happy with the draft 10-year plan, we go to the next, go to the legislature. And then again, we work with them in that process to make any modifications necessary. At that point, it gets signed into law somewhere around June of 2014. So that's 2 years, almost 2 years to get this whole project done. So right now, we're in the beginning stage of the next cycle. And a couple of things I'd like to emphasize is the 10-year plan is not DOT's 10-year plan, it's the state's 10-year plan. And that's something I'm trying to message out there because it's really, it's DOT working with collaboration with the Regional Planning Commission, the GASIP, the public hearing, the public involved, with the governor, with the legislature, and then really as a state and not you. And this year, the kind of big change is that some of the issues that we've seen in the past is that maybe you folks have a lot of great projects, you get together a piece of great, rain, they send off the DOT, this big black box, and outcomes is directly into your plan, it doesn't know how the projects are ranked and why, and we get disappointed, frustrated, and it goes to the public for comments, but nothing really maybe gets changed. So this year, we're trying to be more open how we select projects. And in the past, we worked on different groups with big decisions, but this time we did is we documented decisions, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it. And basically, we did come up with some, this is our kind of decisions for how we're going to make project selection. And again, our goal, strategic goal for DOT, we have 4 strategic goals. The safety, state of repair, improve the state of repair, improve mobility, improve safety, and the economic support of the economic development for New Hampshire. So we did basically is we took the criteria. This is really based off the MPO's criteria. Really kind of mirrors the ones that Rockingham and Nashville use. I saw your list, Mark, and I can see a lot of those fall right into here. You know, we had the state of good repair, that is good preservation,
Yep.
mobility, I saw your safety, your finance, potential for success, support. So we came with these criteria, categories. And within the categories, we start looking at data sets. Basically 2 types. One subjective, one more qualitative. For example, extend service life and current asset conditions. One of them, we know what the asset condition is, and we're estimating what the service life would be. But anyways, within these categories, we have different elements that we rate the projects on. And the way this decision tool works is pretty clever. This came right from the tool. Is we go through what we call pairwise comparisons for priority. And with this, I think Mark and the DFI yesterday actually went through this exercise. It's pretty interesting. What it does, it compares each one of the categories against the others. So it may ask you state of good repair. How does that rank compared to safety? How does safety rank compared to mobility or economic development? How does economic development compare to support? And so forth. It goes through all the iterations. You basically just voting. We'll go 1 through 5, which is more important consideration for a project that's going to support the transportation system. You look at each one of these categories, and then after people will start ranking within the categories of different elements. And at the end, you come up with this weighting system that really weights the different categories and the different elements within the categories. Does that make, I don't know if it's a lot to digest. But what it allows us to do is then you take these criteria and you rank, you rate each project being submitted in your plan based on this criteria. That's going to be at the 1 through 5 criteria. So basically, based on the merit of the project, how they rank within these categories, and how they weight out within each other and across the categories, gives us a final score for the project. And then we take that score, put it with the funding category, the funding, and then we get what we call a return on investment, which helps us allow us to prioritize projects.
I think that's a really key point is first you get a raw project score. So you may have a project like the 93 project that it does an awful lot of good stuff. So it has a pretty high score. You have other projects, that can also score really high that aren't the 93 project, but it's that second step where it does really a cost-benefit analysis and it compares your value to your cost, and it really gives you a better idea of, per dollar, is this project really accomplishing what our goal is? It may be a good project, but it may be really expensive, or it may be not look as good, but really inexpensive. So per dollar, it's a pretty good project.
Exactly. And So it allows us to be very transparent, this is how we select them, and the idea behind this is we really need to come up with a state transportation plan that really supports our strategic goals. We all gotta agree that safety is the biggest, we gotta keep what we have ongoing. We need mobility, we got to look at economic development of the state.
Could you talk about the color coding and how that relates to these criteria?
Yeah, here's some thoughts. We haven't, I'm not sure where we're going to go. Just some thoughts. Basically what it is, there's things in brown are things that we feel the DOT probably has a really strong handle on. This is just one concept. We started first with this chart. So we were going to do, within a project, we would, anything that's brown, we would probably get the shot at and scored, because we probably get the best idea of how to write that. But then there's some things that, the purple, that we don't have a great handle on. We first talk about it, the environment, culture, natural environment, economic development, and accessibility project. Those are things that the regional planning commissions, we think have a lot better handle on than we do. I mean, the idea was that they would basically break the blue, and then the purple would be something we make them collaborate on. That was one concept we had, and basically it's all, so the planning commission would bring all the projects to 10-year plan, and we rank all the projects. Right now, the current concept is we're going to have the regional planning commission rank everything, and DOT is going to rank everything, and we'll bring the scores together.
So the 4 purple squares or rectangles,
Yeah.
that's not cast in granite just yet, right?
No,
That's
no,
just
no. This
showing
is-
you how it
this is
works.
initial
and-
concept.
Okay,
I think the last slide we had is basically all color.
gotcha. Brad?
We're still, I mean, I want to point out too is that we got a late start, we gave a start, as this whole process started, so we're moving ahead like a freight train right now. It's going to be bumpy, it's going to be rushed, but, you know, I think when we get through it, then the next time around, I think it's,
Watch out for the tracks, they're not that great in the state.
yeah.
And then I get the question.
Yeah.
I like the way I like the direction this is headed, but I'm very concerned about the details. So state support, let's just talk about that one.
Actually,
So in the
Oh, yeah.
details here,
Great.
you know,
Yep.
support, state, a measure of support at the New Hampshire DOT. What does that mean?
Yeah, these are high-level definitions. And what that really means is this is a project that DOT really supports, and it will be a rating of 1 through 5. And what we do is in a scale 1 through 5, it breaks down what we mean by 1, what we mean by 5. 5 the highest, 1's the lowest, 5 the highest. And we haven't broken those scales out yet. So one,
But you could see where I might be concerned about that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, if we gave the high-level definition for these, and you understand, but then when we get into the scale from 1 to 5 for each one of these, it's broken down in more detail what we mean by a 1, what we mean by space support at this level, at 1 level, what we mean by 5 level. And we have not broken down yet. We're still working hard to get those. Now, I think they'll add a little more clarity.
Yeah.
We're going to have concerns up here and here, right? But-
Yeah. Well, our bureau's in the basement, and it's indicative of kind of where we lie in the whole scheme of things, so, you know.
And as a note about that whole thing, Brad, there's also, so within support as an entire category, that whole silo there's 3 different things that we're going to be scoring: the local, the regional, and the state. And we actually do have control over how we weight those 3, at least within our own region. I'm sure the state, they have
Yeah.
control of how they rate the 3. So, we can put 90% of our weight in the regional and local section and have that really outweigh the state from a regional perspective. It would have to be ultimately aggregated with the state. Before it gets into the 10-year plan, it's probably going to come to some balance. But just a couple concerns that DOT's priorities aren't necessarily the regional priorities. We're going to have some ability to change the weighting scale within each of those categories. Is that accurate? No? Oh, maybe that's new.
What it is it's Yes and no. The answer is that you can weight the scales the way you see fit.
Yeah.
And again, we're asking you to really think about what's the best state's transportation system. That's the goal. And basically focus on those strategic goals we have. That's going to be the core of our decision making. Okay, that I just keep that in mind. And once we get, this is what we do, once we get the scores in, we're really going to, real weights are probably going to be, probably not going to be your weights, but we're going to use scores for each of the projects. Putting this decision lens using the weights that we came up with collaborating between the DOT and we're probably going to use the results we had yesterday at the Regional Planning Commission and probably take that under consideration. We want to show that your scores, I don't know if they talked about yesterday, but the way you rank, prioritize these categories, and these in here,
Just the top categories.
Top categories. You came out very, very close to the
And that's the,
almost exactly.
and that's the third handout that was passed out.
So basically, you're asking yourself, what's the best weighting of these criteria for the transportation system? You guys can do the same number we came up with, very similar. And that's how we're going to rank projects. Again, this is one, it's not a 10-year plan of DOT projects and Regional Planning Commission projects now. It's a list of projects for your region.
I think one of the most informative aspects of the session we had yesterday was seeing the application of political will. So political will was all of our 93 projects have to be funded. What does that do to the rest of the system? And it's very clear, because at the end point you can change the factors on the funding and what priorities you fund, and that very clearly shows the impact of political will on the system and what it does to your portfolio.
And that's a great point. I think it's some real eye-openers for us at DOT. So a couple of other things we like about this too is that since the weight is done by a voting, what it is kind of interesting, we talk about the pairwise, compare this and this, and then we'll get a little clicker, and we just to rate 1 through 5, the different categories. They all place the score comes up and takes an average of the scores. The nice about it, it takes out the political power of saying we want to weight something higher than the other because it's really a kind of voting process. But what I think Cynthia in the system, so we rank everything based on our ROI, return on investment. So your project gets a score, and then we compare it with the cost. If you have a high cost and a low score, project, how do we push back a little bit? If you have a high score and a low cost, it's a great return on investment and gets pushed up in the system. So once we rank out the project, you kind of see based on the categories where the project is lined up. What we're able to do is force funding for the project. And for example, Memorial Bridge is one. If you look at the value of this ranking, kind of the score is fairly, it's not low, but it's not high, but the cost is astronomical. And it gets falls to the end. But we go in and say the Memorial Bridge is being funded, and there's the money there. All of a sudden that project that is funded and jumps up on the list, and we can see what doesn't get funded. And we can do that basically live, interactive. So if we can work with the public or work with the legislature body, is they say, well, we really want this project, so we can do that, and we can force it in there, and we'll see what's not going to happen. And basically at that point, everyone's going to see what's not going to get done. Right now, when we look at this stick of projects, we say, I want this project funded, we say, okay, and then things fall out. It's not always clear what fell out, what the impact is. This tool really graphically represents that, really get these messages out, what the impact is of certain decisions. So what the people is to be open and transparent. That's our whole thing, is really be open and transparent.
Can the model also show if there's a funding source, how it broadens the projects?
Yes,
specifically?
yeah, in the weeds here, but yeah, within the funding, we put different funding sources. So we put a different type of funding sources in the program and assign different funding sources to projects. So basically, certain projects aren't ranked high, but they fit into a specific funding source to their projects.
It's also a great way if let's say if they wanted to bring that $30 motor vehicle tax back, it's a good way to see what projects might be able to be funded if that extra revenue was
If we're going to spend it on
coming.
payment, resurfacing, we start putting that money towards resurfacing, all of a sudden you see a resurfacing budget go up. A couple of good things about this too, is also we're renting not just projects, but our programmatic programs in here. And what our programs we're talking about, I think what you folks use is our HSIP, safety money. Even though we're not calling up specific projects, that pot of money gets ranked and goes into the road solutions model. The guardrail, the resurfacing, just about 15 programmatic projects that will also do that. I think going down the road in the future, that's going to be a little more important. I keep going at that time.
Ken?
Given the fact that a lot of my educational background is in a fairly analytical field, engineering, I also understand that if the premise upon which an analytical tool is based is flawed, then the people who are looking at the tool say, wow, this is great, it's very objective, we're using numbers, but if it's based on assumptions or a philosophy, then the fact that the rest of the tool is analytical and objective really doesn't make any difference because it's based on something that's flawed. And so I guess one of my concerns is that this looks like an interesting tool, but I want to make sure that it isn't seen as doing something that it doesn't do. If it's still based on sort of fundamental philosophies. And I guess the question that I would ask, for example, is my guess is on a lot of roadways where there is a high crash rate or there would be a determination that there was a safety issue, lowering the speed limit might be a very, very inexpensive way to reduce the crash rate and improve safety. But, so if you say, what is really the most cost-effective way to do this stuff, that might be the answer. But is there the will to tell people you got to drive more slowly, and then there's an enforcement issue and all the rest. But nonetheless, my guess is that the lowering the speed limit is not really going to be an issue that people look at so much as do we put in more guardrails, do we straighten out the curve, or whatever.
That's I said I want to go on. You're right on target. I want to talk about next. Is project solicitation.
Solicitation.
Project solicitation. I'm not going to try
Write that down.
We know what you mean.
Okay, guys, got it. You're not helping.
I have similar problems.
Yes. Anyways, it's maybe try not to look at, I'm not sure this round, maybe the next round, not try to look at, give me your project for 10-year plan. It's give me your problem or your issue with the transportation system. And then from there, we'll try to figure out the best solution. And because we have more avenues than just the 10-year plan process. And that's where I was bringing up the programmatics. And the idea is we have a tremendous issue, and we look at it and say, wait a minute, the problem is we have a lot of speeding and cross crashes, safety issue. Do we need a 10-year plan project? Or is this something maybe we go to the district and DOT Bureau of Traffic, maybe try to lower the speed limit? That's just a conversation, some science maybe. We can maybe handle that very quickly with just force account money, DOT money, and maybe within construction season or so, we can jump out there and get those signs up and make some small improvements. It may not be the all catch-all improvement, but it may solve some of the problems, and we're not going to 10-year plan. It may be something a little bigger. Maybe it is a little guardrail work, some median work, some raised medians in there. Is that a 10-year plan project? Or is that something maybe that would fall under one of our betterment programs, like guardrail betterment program or our servicing programmatic program? And if you're looking at the districts, they may say, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's just stick that for a programmatic project. Now we're talking probably somewhere $100,000 3 to 4 years, we're scheduled out for programmatics, but you're gonna see that in your lifetime. That's a huge win. It may not be a perfect solution, but it's a good start. If it's something bigger, whole intersection redesign, and we gotta do some major work, yeah, that is a 10-year plan project. And we'll work with you, and we'll get it into us, we'll grant you. And again, unfortunately, that's kind of like the boot prize. Maybe we're talking 10, 12 years before we see that project. So if we keep it as a transportation need, we have the ability to maybe find other solutions to getting that project done. And that's where I think we're going to start moving towards working with the community independent planning process, to kind of develop this process.
Does that include more mass transit theoretically? If it solves the problem?
If it solves the problem, yeah. I mean, if it means if we can, get the CMAQ money or something, or money that maybe mass transit, then that's a solution. Maybe we can find that kind of money that will solve the problem. Without programmatic wise, without going to the project. So that's kind of the new way we're trying to think, more transparent, maybe look at other opportunities that the 10-year plan that gets big projects done for you guys. We really try to look at the system as a whole now, not just the state system, the local system. It's really trying to look at the system as a whole. And that's what we're trying to change the way we think and do business.
Mark, then Red. Mark, you had your hand up?
I guess this point's a little bit past now, but I think from our perspective, again, we like this because of the accountability aspect. When you see the final result, we're switching out projects, force the Sarah Long Bridge in there, what it does to other projects. I think if legislators decide that we need this big project, their name's going to be tied to it. And I think it's a good thing to make take the politics out. Well, we might not take politics necessarily out of it, but next election cycle, it may have an impact on what, if people are making a lot of political moves, it may, highlight that situation.
It's more transparent. They made it,
Yeah.
it's documented, it's shown what happened, and we'll document why that was put in there. This tool will probably give us an answer. It's not going to be the final answer, I can guarantee that. It's going to get us a long ways down that road prioritizing, but still, between you folks, GASIT, public hearing, the governor, and the legislature, this will change from what the original draft is. But we're going to say, from our analytical tools, our expertise, we think this is a great start.
Brad.
This is how we're going to start, and we'll modify from there as we get customer satisfaction.
Again, I support movement in this direction. I think it's great. I think Ken brought up a really good point, and he didn't go where I thought he was going to go with it, though. And that is that this assumes that we have really well thought out and well vetted policy with which to direct us. And I would argue as a state, we do not have that. And so when we're saying, policy talks about our entire system, our entire transportation network versus roads and bridges and sort of everything else along the peripheral. And that I see as a major problem with this, potentially. And why I stress that point that we need to look at our entire system, parts of which New Hampshire DOT does not have a lot of control over, like us, like Wildcat. And we tend to be forgotten because DOT does not control our purse strings. But we're an important component of our overall transportation network.
Right, and that's where the dedicated funding sources come in. It's funny you mentioned that, is that DOT has spent a lot of time working with this. Working with other DOTs that do performance management, asset management type work. And we visited, so far we visited North Carolina. We talked to Wisconsin, we talked to one of these there is Wisconsin, we talked to Utah. Actually, we got a meeting back in Utah talking about asset management, how we're structuring. North Carolina was great. They're one of the leaders in asset management. We actually moved from Amtrak. Amtrak uses this decision lens approach to do their work. Great results. And one thing we did find out of all this peer exchange of federal highways is that we don't have a great strategic policy out there. And that's our next big goal. Actually, last night we commissioned all directors. We actually started to form committees and get people going with it. We really need to be a clear strategic goal of what we're trying to do for our transportation system. And that's to communicate output as well as the DOT.
Right.
And I, look at almost every state out there, there's four things to focus on. Is safety, state of repair, the mobility, and economic development. Improving in all those aspects. That's going to be our focus going forward. That's kind of a nation trend. But we got to get that into policy and direction, get that out there to see what we're focusing on. We are funding, we don't have a lot of money out there. Definitely funding critical growth. And so we got to use this money we have to best we have to kind of try to meet those goals.
Ed?
Put private business, we got to really think about that direction.
Ed?
Well, what concerns me, and I always bring the Rollins for parochial, I live on Route 4, which runs from Dover to South Berwick, New Hampshire 4, and they just repaired that road a year ago and did a great job and put new guardrails on, pavement and so forth. And all that did is speeded up the traffic. And now when we have a crash hit in Roberts Road or wherever it is, it's more serious than it was before. But what concerns me is that this piecemeal, as I see it, I don't have a lot of complaints about the state, what DOT is doing in Rollinsford. I have a real concern. Now, we run them up Route 4. There's 12,000 cars that go past my driveway every day. I have to wait to get out on the highway if I'm taking the wrong time of the day. And then when you get up to Oak Street, you either go on down Portland Avenue into Dover, and the road's pretty bad, or you turn on Oak Street to get up to the northern part of Dover. And Oak Street, Dover says that's mainly Rollinsford's road, and we should fix it. So they fixed Oak Street, which runs from Cecil Avenue to Route 4. They fixed it to Broadway, and then they stopped and said, from Broadway to Route 4, mainly in Rollinsford. And we should fix it. Well, the signals, though, that the state and so forth sends to Rollinsford, that's not important at all. I said, how much money is the town of Rollinsford getting through highway grant money and so forth for Oak Street? They said, nothing. Any compensation from grants from the state goes to Dover for Oak Street. But Dover says Oak Street's 2/3 in Rollinsford, and so, but they say, but we're not going to give you any money for it, and so we have no incentive to take out a small amount of money and transfer it over on this connector road, which is Oak Street, which really does need some work. And if you go over there now, you'll see we did shim it, but we did not put the top layer on last year because we didn't have the money in Rollinsford. And so I was trying to figure out what we were getting from the state for a year, and we're getting nothing. So the planning, they're telling us we want to get Route 4 fixed up real good, run them up to Dover, and then let them go in oblivion, planning-wise speaking. And that's what's always bothered me, the connector roads. One section is fixed and it's real good, and everybody's encouraged to speed, and then you throw them into potholes and et cetera, narrow roads. And I don't know how we get that in the regional planning, because Oak Street's not in 10-year plans and stuff. But that is a damn important road if you think about regionally getting around Dover and so forth.
That's a local road, correct?
It's a local road. It says it's Rollinsford Road, and even the state doesn't give us any money whatsoever for that. So it tells us it's not important, but it is damn important.
It is important, and that issue did come across my desk. And really the question is, who owns that road and who gets the block grant aid money? And whoever's getting the block grant aid money should be probably responsible for the maintenance of that. But that's a conversation, I think, between the two towns to figure out. We can make adjustments to the block grant aid money.
They made
But
decisions.
We need some kind of direction from the community who owns it, where it belongs.
Like the point.
Change it, and then get the towns to figure out how it gets fixed up.
I'd like to point out too, on Rollinsford's quote-unquote Oak Street end, Rollinsford's also got a bridge there, goes over the railroad tracks.
That's actually state-owned.
That's state-owned?
We wouldn't
Still,
accept
not
it.
for long.
Okay. I always assumed that end of Oak Street, one side was Dover and the other side was Rollinsford. At least that's where the addresses go, postal addresses. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
It's-
we used to assume for years, for planning purposes, that the center of the Oak Street was a dividing line, so whenever Dover went and said, we're gonna spend $6,000 to repave it this year, we'll send Rollinsford a bill for
Half of it.
half of it, and we said, okay, that sounds good, and Dover took care of it. And then suddenly, Dover had financial problems, and the public works director was to make sure he was doing Dover streets and not Rollinsford streets, and he started cutting back and said, well, the line is 2/3 in Rollinsford and only 1/3 in Dover, and we don't know where the line is, and there's different surveys. But you said, work it out with Dover. I talked 2 or 3 times with them, and who do I talk to and who makes the final decisions? And so it gets delayed from year to year. But it's really Dover, Rollinsford, and the state should be doing some planning on this year. Well, Rollinsford, we're a tenth of what Dover is, and we don't carry much weight politically speaking. But it's a real frustration. But I see that this segmented planning, you do a real good job on a section, and then you go a little further, and nothing's been done, and never gets done.
Yeah, and again, that's probably why this is not a final plan, because things like that, because these criteria don't take into effect that it's technically, there's a lot of capital, and, addressing, that's where the human.
I just would like to add, that's why when the state and the regional planning commissions, the MPOs look at corridors, the corridors are a 1/4 mile wide. So Route 4 between Dover and Rollinsford is one of the statewide regional corridors. So a 1/4 mile on either side of that road is part of the corridor. So that would include the Oak Street issue. So it should be addressed at the local, regional, and state level, because it functions as a corridor, and the connectors to the corridor are as important as the corridor itself.
And I think this time around, now that we're actually going to be seeing the district's projects, we'll have a better idea of how all of our projects can be interrelated.
And that's a big part of this, making an argument, these all kind of flow together, and that's, again, that's where maybe this stuff we can address it, but we can, once we get the draft, and then we can make those changes and bring things together. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's a great starting point, but it's not the final answer.
We're moving in the right direction, I think, is the take-home message here. It'll take a little while to get there.
First time around, but we're doing a very good action just to get it out there, so it's really important.
So, Dan, could you give people the dates and commitments?
Yeah, basically, well, I guess sticking with this criteria, Cynthia, you were told that we were going to get a spreadsheet or something that we might be able to use to rank our projects. We won't have access to Decision Lens to actually go in and rank projects, but we will have some kind of at least Excel spreadsheet where we can.
Okay.
I don't want to say come up with our own rankings, because as we were just as it was just presented, it doesn't sound like it's really worth us putting together our own, criteria rankings. But we can certainly get our projects into that spreadsheet and try to rank them, maybe using this example weighting. But that's something that hopefully we could do maybe next month to get it to TAC and bring it to
Excuse me,
policy.
the draft ratings have to be available for your review next month, and you have to approve them at your March meeting, because they have to be into DOT on March 31st. All of our project rankings have to be in, or they're not going to be considered. That's what we've been told. So we have a really fast few months ahead. Dan and Mark will be working on that. So our whole project solicitation process has changed a bit, and that's why we're spending time on this, because we're separating out the long range and doing the 10-year, the two processes separately. So there's two different aspects of voting and evaluation, that we will be looking at as our TAC and policy committees. Is that all set?
I think that does a good job. And so, just to summarize again, the 10-year plan, we're going to be looking at projects that currently exist in those out years, the 2023 through 2040. We're doing a ranking using this system, and the priorities will float to the top, hopefully, and we'll be shipping it off to New Hampshire DOT. We'll have a chance to vote on those. We'll have a chance to tweak those projects that are being sent to DOT, and that's where this, reviewing the draft next month comes in. The project solicitation, that's for the Metro Plan out-year projects for the next time around. We're not going to be able to use any new projects that we get from that process for this year. So yeah, I guess we can, if folks are interested, they can go into the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, look at those long-range plan projects, and just, start getting a feel for them. Start maybe making some internal judgments about which projects we think are important, so that we make sure to identify those when we're sending them off to DOT and score them using this criteria.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions about this? No? Okay. Moving on to the Unified Planning Work Program, Process, and Schedule. Cynthia?
Yes, so same deadline, we'll have a draft of our Unified Planning Work Program, our scope of work, and our budget for you to look at next month. And in March, we'll be adopting the 2014 through 2015 Unified Planning Work Program, scope of work, and budget to send to DOT. So far, we have not heard anything about what our budget will be, so we're making the assumption that it will be the same as the last 2-year cycle. You can see on the page here, we've gone over this before, and we have 5 categories. And the handout shows you that the ones in the brown ochre color are additional areas that we're adding in. So some of these are subtasks, and some of them, 102.4 is a subtask for us to do certification and compliance reporting. And 105, there already is a performance measures, but now we've added to this so that we can do work on performance measures, our targets, and our reporting. And then it just goes through the categories. So in 200, we've added land use, economic development, and environmental linkages. Under 210, we've added our project portfolio and project database. In category 400, you can see we're focused on performance measures because this is what moving ahead of the MAP 21 highway reauthorization bill has us starting to implement our performance measures and targets. We've added our sidewalk inventory, and then over under category 500, we've added an intermodal transportation planning and integration for passenger and freight rail, aviation, and port planning. And then on the other pages, I just showed you that we don't do this in a vacuum. So on page 4, it shows you these are what we received from New Hampshire Federal Highways and Federal Transit for our planning emphasis areas, and you can see those there. And then on pages 5 through 7, I went through and delineated all the directives that we were given for the preparation of our fiscal year 14 through 15. So everything that's going to be added will be going through this and making sure that 1 is already in the plan, or 2 that we need to add it in or change the wording. So you can see all of the different areas. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're pretty much keeping 90%, 95% of our scope of work and budget as it is from last time. It's worked really well. We're on target, we're on track. We had a good mid-year review with New Hampshire DOT. They said they don't have any questions about what we're doing. We're doing a good job. So now all we're doing is going back in and checking out what it is that we need as staff that wasn't included last time, and what has been added by Federal Highways and Federal Transit Administration that due to the new federal reauthorization, we need to add into our scope of work. So that's essentially where we are, and you'll have the draft next month, and then you'll be approving it in March. So it will be going out the door as well on March 29th to New Hampshire DOT for their review.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Thank you, Cynthia. Moving on, public participation process and schedule. Marilyn.
Okay. Well, the public participation plan is part of our public involvement process. And as Mark pointed out in the memo that he sent out to you, what this does is it allows transportation organizations such as MPOs understand and assess impacts from possible transportation projects as viewed by those in the community. So having said that, the task I've been given is to work on updating that plan, because we're incorporating some new public outreach events and technology that we're currently doing. And some of those events and technology include Facebook, Twitter, we're going to be blogging. We've been putting out what they call listening posts so we can get input from people, and of course our website. And we've also received input about transportation concerns at some of the festivals that we worked the last few months, Apple Harvest Day in Dover, the Newmarket Heritage Festival, some events at the local government center, and in the future there's going to be some senior centers that we're visiting, as well as farmers markets, to get some more input. And also what I've been doing is reviewing the RSAs that are in our current plan to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And another thing that we're going to be working on is a Citizens Advisory Committee. So if anyone has any comments or suggestions on that, I'd appreciate you forwarding them on to me. And then as far as the schedule goes, I'm working on researching other plans for examples and starting the updates to the plan. And then the next step will be getting that draft document out for public comment to the local libraries and our website at the end of April. And that's a 45-day, correct, Cynthia? That's a 45-day comment period. And then in May 3rd for TAC, it will be going to them at their May 3rd meeting, and then at the Policy Committee on May 17th, their meeting, so that I can get their input and comments. And then in June, for the June, what is it, I didn't put that on there, but the first Friday in June, it will be presented to TAC for their recommendation to the Policy Committee, and then it will be approved by this committee June 21st. So it's a busy time, but I feel confident that it will go fine. And if anybody has any comments or suggestions for me, I'd be happy to hear from you.
Anybody?
Could you just talk briefly about why this is done?
Well, if some of you have heard of what's called commonly known as Safety Lou, which is the Safe, Accountable, Flexible, Efficient Transportation Equity Act, a legacy for users. And it broadened opportunities for public participation. And by having public input, it allows people to let organizations such as ours be aware of impacts it may have to certain communities that don't normally get a chance to speak. And so this update to the plan is allowing us to broaden those opportunities for people.
I believe it's also a cyclical federal requirement where we have to just maintain it, make sure that we're including all of our latest public outreach procedures that we're following.
Any other comments? No? Okay, moving on. Metropolitan Plan update process and schedule. Mark and Greg.
All right. Yeah, I want to talk about the full metropolitan plan update, full metropolitan transportation plan. So this is the document that accompanies that project list that we talked about earlier. We have one now. It's on our website. It's pretty long. It's pretty dense. There's a lot of good information in there, but it's pretty long. I don't know how many people in here have been through it. So I believe it's every 4 years, we need to review this document and update it. And after looking at a lot of the newer plans that have been released in the last few years from some of the other top NPOs in the country, the Portland, Oregon NPO, a couple of NPOs from Florida, and then also a few from Arizona that were doing really good work. We decided to change the format of our plan somewhat. And so what we have today is the cover page, the outline, and a couple of just examples of the types of things we're going to be trying to go for within our update of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. It's a little bit fuzzy on here, apologize for that. So really the structure of our plan is changing. Right now the plan is, I would say it's more of an encyclopedia than an action-based plan. It has a lot of information, a lot of good information, but it's tough to see where it's going or where the region is and where we're trying to, what the objectives are for the future. I think that's something that was really missing. So this plan, we're really focusing on, we'll start out with an executive summary, just kind of giving an overview of what this is. The second section down is a review of the moving ahead for progress in the 21st century planning factors that were outlined by Federal Highways. And those planning factors are very similar to the safety loop planning factors that we talked about before. We have safety, security, environment, economy, all of the planning factors we've grown accustomed to. Moving on down through the plan, we're going to have an introduction to the region, and this is really going to be summarizing where we are right now as a region, what the transportation system looks like, what the demographics look like, and just providing some general background on where we are and outlining some of the challenges that we face right now. The next section, the Vision 2040, is going to be setting some objectives and goals for ourselves for 2040. Where do we want to be when we're, in 25 or 30 years? What is our region going to look like? What do we want it to look like? And so this information is really being informed by or partially by the Granite State Futures Project. We've done a lot of outreach, gone to a lot of events, and talked to a lot of people about what they want to see from this region. Really trying to gain a better understanding of what we really want, what our objectives really are for 2040. Within this section, we're also going to outline some strategies for achieving those goals. So instead of just having the encyclopedia type thing of certain ideas you could adopt to achieve some goals that are kind of vague, we're going to have some actual goals, and we're going to have some actual strategies to move towards achieving that vision. I would like to note that this is an advisory-only document, so this is giving people ideas of where we need to go. There's no requirements to follow these steps. That's entirely up to the community to pursue any of the ideas in this. But the steps for getting, achieving our vision, they're all going to be, or they're going to, really cover a broad range of things from, regulatory things like driveway permitting, all the way to actual steps we need to take as far as safety improvements or other things like that we want to pursue within the region. So that section, the action steps that we can take is going to be outlined in the strategy section. We're going to be going through some of the bigger strategies, how we're going to measure those how we're going to measure our success for moving towards this vision. And then also talk about some of the information that we've reviewed, I think it was back in October, the financial constraint for the projects in our plan, and then talk about the actual projects in our region from our long-range plan solicitation in this last section here. And so I really want to just go through, Michelle Allens, or I guess Michelle Mears is working on this right now. Pal's going to be working on it. Dan and I are going to be spending some time. Greg's going to be spending some time on it. So it's really a holistic process here with the staff. We have a little bit of an executive summary, just setting up the framework. Probably going to go through some revisions over time here. But I really wanted to show you just in that first section, the MAP 21 planning factors. We're really going to try to set this up in a way that's much more user-friendly than the way it is now. So each planning factor is going to kind of have a page dedicated to itself. We're going to talk about what that federal definition is for safety and transportation. What does that mean? The federal side of things, what does that look like in our region? We're going to put a couple different things in there to give people an idea of what we're talking about and kind of frame up how this entire document is going to flow. Everything's going to be kind of based around these MAP 21 planning factors. We're also going to have some of the activities and examples of things that we're going to do to achieve safety, or that we could do to achieve a safer transportation system in our region. And in this box here, we're going to eventually have some of the performance measures, and how are we going to track that? How are we going to understand that? Just listed there. And the sidebar here, we're probably going to have some statistics about, how are we measuring our safety on our transportation system in the region now. Maybe some transportation resources that people can go to learn about safety initiatives in New Hampshire. I have Driving Towards Zero as one of the current initiatives. But really wanted this section of the document to be something that you could, helps inform the document, what this document's about, but you can pull it out and bring it to folks so that they have an idea of what we're talking about. We're talking about planning factors or what's important with the region. I think that's a big part of this. We really want to make it much more user-friendly. Put a few more visualizations in there so that it's not just dense text throughout the entire document. It's actually meaningful to people. I think a picture says 1,000 words. So we're going to try to have more maps and more usable information for folks. A couple of the other things. Our goal with this project, and it's actually set up pretty consistently with the Grant State Futures initiative. This is probably going to be our transportation chapter in the Grant State Futures. So this is really accomplishing a couple of different goals at the same time. And the last point I'd like to make, or actually a couple more things. Our schedule for completing this is a really big undertaking. It's a complete overhaul of our transportation, or our metropolitan transportation plan. We see this taking probably about a year. So next December is when December-January timeframe is when we're really hoping to see it completed. We're starting work on it now. We're doing outreach now. We'll definitely have more for this committee to review moving towards that date. And I guess, again, my last point, we're going to be forming a transportation advisory committee of people from around the region. We're going to try to have some transit folks involved. We're going to have some folks who rely on public transportation. We're looking for other people to also step up and be part of this. If you have an interest in transportation in the region, you have some ideas that will help form maybe some strategies for achieving those goals that have been stated in the vision. We'll be working on a lot of those things. So if there's any interest, please get in contact with me. We won't be meeting for probably a little while. I can see it pushing it off for a couple months because we have a lot of things going on right now. But we are going to form an advisory committee, and we will be meeting probably 4 or 5 times over the next year, hopefully, to just talk about transportation and talk about how to achieve what we want to achieve in our region.
Any questions for Mark? Comments? Bill?
These transportation advisory committees, I note that Dover
has one of these committees, and they would be reviewing different programs that would come before them, approving them, and passing them on to council. Is that how they're used?
This is going to be somewhat different than that. This is more of a, I guess a subgroup of the folks sitting in this room right now, and it's kind of a focus group to people who have some understanding, I guess, is what we're looking for of the transportation issues, and they may be specific. Hoping to get not only somebody from Coast there, but probably somebody who uses public transportation as their primary source of transportation, so that we can gain a better understanding of what are the actual needs from all of our different populations of folks in the region. And it's really not going to be used for reviewing any specific project, I would say. I think it's going to be really informing a document. So we're going to be using this to get a better understanding of the challenges we face currently in our region, and also to help us evaluate some of the strategies we're going to use to achieve the vision. So it's not somebody's bringing in a project and we're reviewing it and making a recommendation to a council to fund it, but rather more of a discussion group to talk about the issues in the region and potential solutions for achieving our goals.
Brad?
A subset of us here may be more our constituents than us.
Yeah, I think we want some.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we
not
want some
just
other
the folks
people
in
at the
this room,
table, right?
But
also, to follow up on your question, a community and their TAC could, there's nothing holding them back from participating and providing comment at the points at which public comment is being sought. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't imagine I am on this point, but you'd be very open to that sort of input.
we're looking for input from any group. That's why we've been doing, it's been aimed at the Granite State Futures, but that's really why we've been doing these outreach events, is we want everybody to tell us how we're doing and where we need to go and how we should get there. Those are the things that we're really looking for, and it doesn't matter who you are, as long as you're from the region, I think, is the big thing.
Bob?
Yeah, I would say, try and put this in perspective from what I'm hearing from people. You'd expect Liberty Mutual, you'd expect Saffron, you'd expect how many others, Measured Progress comes to mind. These are the constituencies that we theoretically are serving. So it's not the providers per se, but it's the recipients. Again, just because they were all very good points made, but those are the sorts of people. TurboCamp would be another example that comes to mind. I think you can probably find 3 to 5 major businesses in each jurisdiction that we should be encouraging to become engaged. And I think that's the point Brad was trying to make also, I believe.
Right.
Any other comments? Questions?
I guess a final point, just touching on that, I think that's a really good idea we need to get these people involved to have outreach. The transportation, the Citizens Advisory Committee, I guess one of my concerns is hearing that it's tough to get anywhere with too many cooks in the kitchen. So I think the outreach part is really important, and we do want all of that information, and there may be room for, a few people from the business community, a few people who are users of transit, a few people, from all these different groups, but I think that you start getting up more than 10 people and meetings start bogging down. So we need to, it's something to think about of, what's the size of this subgroup? And it's not to say that other people don't have input into this subgroup, but just that, for the purposes of keeping things productive and moving forward, having a more contained subgroup that does a lot of outreach to these other groups, I think is an important thing. I'm all ears if people have different opinions than that. This is the policy committee, and you will direct us on where we need to go with this process. So I'd be interested in hearing more.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be in some of these larger businesses is if you reach out to those planning officers from those regions, and they can reach out and ask them what concerns they are, because I know in our office, people come in all the time and express, concerns over, different traffic issues within the community. So if you reached out to, the Dover planning office, if Tom, talked to Chris, maybe Chris would have ideas because he's talked to the people at Liberty Mutual who expressed a concern over certain issues. Especially Liberty Mutual and Measure Progress, they feed right into Barrington, that whole corridor, that transportation network in that area.
Yeah. But Bob, I do think it is really important to get people from the business community involved with this because they are the users of the system.
So, but Marcia would hit the point. I was not suggesting that the group at the Planning Commission encompass all those people.
Yeah.
But commissioners need to take a more active role and go back to their communities and bring things back from their communities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mark, would it be feasible to have, like, when you contact these different local businesses, have some sort of
business night, theoretically?
Well, yeah, questionnaire or comment,
Yep.
something
Some
or
kind of
other.
survey
I think
or-
Rad's Coast did that a
Yep.
year or so ago. Rad, you took comments from some of the ridership and all that stuff. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think all of this stuff is probably going to be part of the process. I don't know specifics at this point, but I like these ideas, and I think
More specifically, when you said that, it reminded me, realistically, we're currently running, I believe, six trains a day now. 2 of those, whichever direction, doesn't really matter. It might be very interesting in collecting data because there are UNH students who are using that on a daily basis. There are any number of people from Liberty Mutual using that on a daily basis. So that would be an excellent place to actually do that. I would say the Dover train station is probably, or Dover, Durham, and Exeter. I realize Exeter is in our area, but get some feeling for that flow, because there's a lot more what I'm going to call local traffic than end-to-end traffic on a lot of this.
Good point. Don't forget the Patriot train, too, out of South Station. Anything else? Other than that, okay. Moving along, project update. Are there any project updates available? Greg, Dan, Mark?
Yeah, I have a few. Spent a lot of time this week communicating with New Hampshire DOT and communities and transit agencies about a few different projects. I saw an update on the Lee Park and Ride. Apparently it's still going forward, and we're still having a meeting at some point with New Hampshire DOT, Coast, UNH Transit, I'm guessing people from Lee, and I don't know if the landowner is going to be a stakeholder at this meeting. I think that Wentworth Douglas may be, though, because they have that facility over there, and we want to make sure that we have accessibility to these places. So we're still having a meeting at some point. The project hasn't dropped off the face of the earth. We're happy to hear that. Moving up Route 125, we just heard about a couple of projects that are happening in Barrington at the Route 125-9 intersection. There are some improvements that are going into the intersection that I believe were triggered by a gas station development.
It's an
Yep.
application for the planning board.
Yeah, and we're also, the District 6 is also doing an overlay, 1-inch overlay, scheduled for this summer on that section of Route 125. And it turns out UNH is also starting a bus route. I think it's beginning in February. 18th on the same route. So we've been frantically trying to get in touch with DOT about this project because we hadn't heard much about it or these projects. Talked to people from DOT District 6. We're trying to set up a meeting now with folks at Rail and Transit, having representatives from District 6, Barrington, UNH, and ourselves to figure out if we can do any transit improvements on this area also. There's a lot of right-of-way directly around this intersection. DOT owns a lot of the land They only need a few more feet of space or of pavement to actually turn it into 2 through lanes in each direction in that, just through the intersection, which may help deal with some of the congestion that's there in the queuing. I know that it backs up pretty far in the mornings. We haven't talked too much about this stuff
Well,
yet.
and I started thinking about it, I don't know if we need to get it on board, because TurboCam, which is building right on Route 9, is supposed to have 200 employees, and they're planning on finishing their building by next summer.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things coming together here. We need safe. One of the big things for UNH is, safe places to pull the bus off. They're going to have a spot. Right now, they're planning, I believe, just north of the intersection on Route 125. It would be great if we could get bus pullouts there. It would be really great if we could get a couple of sidewalks and a crosswalk going across the street so that they can get to the park and ride without having to run across 5 lanes of traffic without any pedestrian signal. So there's a lot to do with this project. Pretty excited that the district seemed absolutely willing to work with us on this. I think one of the big questions is finding the funding, and that's where rail transit comes in. So big stuff going on at that intersection.
Brad? Yep.
I guess, are we following the Route 125 corridor study plan?
Some stuff, yes.
We just finished it not
Yeah.
that long ago.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we definitely review it for all the projects that are in there. We have reviewed all the projects that are happening. We have reviewed what it recommends in the corridor study. Not all of the improvements are following the corridor study, and some of that's not entirely in our hands. We always make the recommendation to follow the corridor study because we thought it was done pretty well.
When you have significant projects that all of a sudden drop right into that area,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like
I
you
mean,
kind of
this
have
was
to
a
like
surprise,
adjust to everything. But it fits in nicely if you could get across.
Yeah.
The only thing is, Barrington doesn't have any equipment that does sidewalks maintenance.
So yeah,
We don't have any. It'd be the first.
There's some stuff to figure out still, but we're working in that direction. We're holding a meeting pretty soon, hopefully. The last thing I wanted to show, just that. Okay, my mouse go over this side. There we go. This is about the Rochester Park and Ride. Really haven't heard a lot about the Rochester Park and Ride, other than that it got delayed to 2013 for construction. DOT, I think, as of yesterday, put up the project on their project information page. So I'll just quickly. So this is their project information page at New Hampshire DOT. I put in a search for New Hampshire DOT project information under Google thing, and it pops right up as one of the top links. So it's pretty easy to get to. You know what you're looking for. And so this is the new project. Ron Grandmason is our project manager. He's also managing the Route 108 project between Durham and Newmarket. It's been pretty good. So first of all, just pull up the location map real quick, folks to see. Let's make it a little small here. Let's see. So here we have Route 120 or Route 16. This is the north end here, south end down here. This is exit 13. So you come off, head west just a little bit past the Lowe's light here, and there's going to be a new road going in, and this is the area where the park and ride is going to be located. There's also better plans here for the actual park and ride design, so folks can hop on there and take a look at that. But we asked DOT to throw it up on the website, and they did, and we're pretty happy about that. Last thing, Amendment 1. Amendment 1, we're going to be reviewing the draft. We're going to be reviewing Amendment 1 next month. We're going to be getting Amendment 1 approved, hopefully, and sent off to DOT. I think it needs to be there by April 1st. So at our March policy meeting, we'll be looking for an approval on Amendment 1, and we'll have more information about that as it comes along. We're waiting right now for the updated Amendment 1. There were, once again, a few issues with the project list in the past Amendment 1.
Any questions?
I just expand a little bit more on our route that's starting to Rochester. We originally intended to go to the parking lot. Obviously, that's not done yet, so Home Depot has been kind enough to allow us to use their parking lot facility until the parking lot is open.
That's great.
It's temporary.
So you're going to be down on Main Street.
Yeah.
Have you considered the Broad Street's going to be?
We are going to come up and down the highway on that, doing Broad Street.
Okay.
So it's designed to be an express.
There's going to be an awful lot of traffic.
I've seen the notices.
Anything else? Any other? Go ahead, yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Just a few quick updates. I've been fortunate enough to have worked on a number of the UPWP programs, the Culvert Assessment Program, Access Management, the Traffic Count Program, and the Sidewalk Inventory Program. And I've been, in the weeds with those for a number of months now, and I've been able to sort of see what's working and what's not working. And after speaking with staff, we found that it was probably a good idea to start a program procedures document for each of those programs, so that when our field interns come in during the spring, they could sort of hit the ground running and have a good idea of what we need from them, so that we can, get information back that's usable, that is what we asked for. So we're working on that now. I'm going to start with the Culvert Assessment Program. We're going to use that as a template, and then we'll apply that template to the other programs. So that's something that we just started, and that will be coming up in the near future. Building on that, the Culvert Assessment Program has been coming right along. We just got 2 of our geomorphic compatibility and aquatic organism passage compatibility models back from Geologic Survey for Somersworth, Lee, and Madbury. We submitted the report to Somersworth, and it's important to know it's a working document, so we'll be updating the report as needed, adding additional structures at the request of the municipality, and we're doing pretty well with that. Right now I've got Barrington and Rollins for data out to the Geologic Survey, and I'm awaiting their data right now. And I've also got New Durham and Northwood, which is queued to go out in the spring. I have a couple of extra data sets I need to collect before I can submit that. So I just wanted to update you on that project. And lastly, the Development of Regional Impact Program has been seeing a lot of projects since April. We've had 3, and it's just been shown to be a real good way for us to communicate between the municipalities, the surrounding towns that are affected by those projects, and it's sort of a good way to bridge the gap between the state agencies, the Regional Planning Commission, and those towns. So this past one that just came up in Barrington, which I've been bringing up quite a bit, is a gravel pit excavation, which has some transportation-related issues associated with it. And one of those issues was a signalization project that's scheduled for this spring at the Route 125 Green Hill Road intersection. We were able to let the Highway Design Bureau know about that project, and they actually went through their design plans and changed the scope to accommodate the higher truck traffic that's going to be proposed for the intersection. So it's been a pretty good go at that DRI process, and everything's available online if you want to take a look.
That last project, about the Green Hill project, that's becoming a project of contention, I assume,
Yes.
from what I read. So, thank you. Is that it, Greg?
That's a good assertion. Yes, that's it.
Any other project updates?
Yeah, just have one quick update about our ITS plan, which is our Intelligent Transportation Systems Plan and Architecture. I know we had talked about discussing some kind of maintenance plan and how often we want to review that, and talk about new projects that might have happened, and we decided to give an update every January and every June, so twice a year. However, we just approved it in July, and I've checked with DOT and talked with some of the transit agencies to see if there have been any progress on projects, or if anything's been implemented since we approved the plan in July. So nothing has been implemented since July, but during TAC, I know Steve Pesci from UNH was giving us a little update about the AVL, the automatic vehicle location system that they're working on, which I think is progressing, but it's not quite there. It's not implemented yet. So once we do have a project that either needs to be incorporated into the plan or needs to be updated within the plan, you'll see it on the agenda as an action item. It's going to be something that we'll need approval for. So right now, it's just kind of a project update. Again, it was just approved in July, so there hasn't really been any major progress on any projects within that plan. So it's just a quick update for today. But again, we're going to stick to that schedule where we give an update at the very least in January and June to tackle policy.
One ITS kind of related thing that that will be coming online shortly for us. We joined the I-95 Corridor Coalition, which I think we've spoken about this meeting before, and we're gaining access to this INRIX data set of, I guess it's live traffic data from all the major roads, pretty much all the major roads in our region, which is really nice. It has historic data of traffic, it has some tools, and it has live traffic data. So we can make some visualizations from this, we hope, in the future. I think it's a huge data set that we're going to be gaining access to, but it's going to be kind of interesting. I know some of their tools get into reoccurring traffic, certain times of day, when we have issues, which roads, which areas of the road do we have issues on. And also, it's really good for pointing out those non-reoccurring delays, so accidents and things like that. You can really identify, are these happening in a certain location repeatedly? So hopefully it will be helping us gain a better understanding of which roads have congestion that are causing people to waste time sitting in traffic, and is there anything we can do about that? And where are the safety issues, and is there anything we can do about those? So that's, it's ITS in the sense that it's, their data comes through from some kind of GPS system. They have some agreements with car companies, and I believe with certain members of the public they're allowed to have agreements with, and that's how they collect their data. And it's, it's live data all the time, but you also get all the historic archives. They report every 15 minutes. It's pretty detailed. It'll be pretty interesting to see what that looks like once we get our hands on it.
Okay. Under other business, anyone have any other business to discuss or bring up or mention? Hearing none, move on to Citizens Forum, and I don't see anyone else here, so. And lastly, but I'd like to accept a motion for adjournment, if so, desired. Okay, Sandy, second by Bill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.